Okay, this is part 6 and the final part of my responses to the questions that Deconverted Man had asked me about my original video. And we'll just roll this.
With hundreds of prophecies already fulfilled.
Actually, no prophecy is actually fulfilled, but even if a prophecy was fulfilled, that doesn't necessarily mean God done it.
I would say that example I would give would be the reconstitution of Israel, 1948, them coming back and reconstituting that country, and also that I copy-pasted some verses. Jerusalem being a burdensome stone for all nations. The United Nations are having a lot of difficulties knowing what to do with Jerusalem. And I guess the United Nations represent most nations. Jerusalem is divided. So the Arabs or the Palestinians have one half and Israel has the other. There's a lot of issues in the Middle East that line up with things that were prophesied or are going in that direction, rather. Those ones I just mentioned would be foremost among them. I would discourage people from reading too much into Revelation at this point. I mean, at some point maybe a person could do that, but as far as people saying that the eagle is America and the bear is Russia and the dragon is China, we don't know that. I mean, the Bible doesn't say that. So, but anyways, I won't spend too much time on that because that's beside the point. And I don't think that's not what you're looking for. Did find a verse that says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, instruction in righteousness. And that's a verse that people use to say that everything in the Bible, like a 6,000-year-old earth, that has to be 100% true because of this. But these lists of things, reproof, correction, instruction in righteousness, these are moral issues. It's not saying, you know, it's not claiming to be a history book. And when it says doctrine, I looked up the word doctrine and statement of official government policy, and here again it's like the something taught, teaching, principles presented, acceptable belief in religion, political, scientific, philosophical group, dogma. It's referring to mostly moral issues, the rule, principle of law, especially one established by precedent. So it's not even speaking to science in that particular verse, but that is what people will point to to say that you need to believe that the earth is 6,000 years old, just so you know. I'm not saying that it's not, I'm not saying that it is, I'm just saying that that's what they use for that. And what else? Okay, we just said prophecy, and I went to those verses.
There's no other book that comes close.
That's simply untrue, and that's an assertion that any religion can and has claimed.
Well, yeah, they do claim that. Now, philosophically, Buddhism, Hinduism, there's a lot of interesting things in there. But as far as historical book, and I just got through saying that the Bible is not specifically made to be a historical book, but there's a lot of things in there that are historically accurate. And the archaeologists are uncovering all kinds of things. I mentioned earlier about city of Jericho. Well, I won't go into detail about that, but if you wanted to know like what separates the Bible from other books, there's a lot of things, and that would be one of them. I mean, like in Job, it describes the earth as being hung on nothing, and God sits on the circle of the earth, and it's hung on nothing. Whereas the Hindus, I believe it is, they talk about a turtle on the back of another turtle swimming through an ocean, yada yada. But I won't go too deep into that. But here again, we're not at the point where you believe in God, and so the Bible, and you don't believe there's truth in the Bible.
Your Creator designed you and knows you better than you know yourself.
More assertions without any evidence or arguments to support them. How do you know that there's a creator that created me, and how do you know that it knows more about me than I know about myself? And if that is true, then this creator knew that I was going to be a skeptic, and knew that I was going to reject the notion of a creator eventually in my life. So, what purpose do I really serve then? I can't believe in this creator. Why did this creator create me?
Well, you're a skeptic, that's good, but you're looking for the truth, and you can't rule out 100% that you won't come to the conclusion that there is a God decades from now, 30 years from now. And it could be because of something the Large Hadron Collider finds out, and it changes your mind. It could be for other reasons, but at this point you can't know, if you are truly searching for the truth, that won't happen at some time in the future. And the science that we depend on, it's changing. I mean, I see stories about like salt is good, salt is bad, coffee's good, coffee's bad, soybeans are good for you, no, they're bad for you. So it's always evolving. People are learning things. 1,000 years from now, people will know a lot more than we do now, and they'll look back at us as arcane. And 1,000 years ago, and 2,300 years ago, let's say, that they had, they called the atom like the smallest. It was more of a theory that the smallest thing. And here again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not saying that I know that. It's just what I remember hearing, that it was the Greeks that first came up with the word atom to describe the smallest part of matter. And we touch things, we hit things, and they seem solid. But in reality, we find out in later centuries, after they first talked about that, there's a lot of space between the electron and the neutron. There's more space than there is actual solid things. So our senses don't tell us that. We have 5 senses, and they carry us through life, on as far as the basics go. We can perceive the things that we need to perceive. And this could almost be like a hologram. I mean, it's more space than not space. And we might need 10 or 50 senses to really understand, and a much larger brain to fully conceptualize what is really going on all around us. We're not getting the full picture. I enjoyed the Osmandius video, and Osmandius has a creator, that would be Alan Moore. But something from nothing in the future, when I describe that same thing, if I ever use that term, I will have to be sure to specify that I'm referring to this universe at this time, not pre-Big Bang, and not anywhere else. So stand corrected on that. And it's kind of like, it was interesting logic, and I'm interested in finding out more about those things. It kind of reminded me of like when people say, there are no absolutes, and then somebody says, are you absolutely sure of that? It's circular.
Some time and consider these things. Ask questions of whoever posted this, and maybe they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Well, that's what I'm doing with this response video. I'm asking all sorts of questions as I point out the problems that you have in this video. But you're probably not going to point me in any direction that I haven't already looked at before, or seen, or heard somewhere else. Here's all I want from you. Empirical evidence, or a repeatable test, and/or a logically coherent argument. If you can't or won't produce one of those 3 things, then I have to be skeptical of your conclusions.
Well, I get that, and I am interested in the books that you'd mentioned about logical arguments, and I want to find some good things on YouTube, because that's the easiest way for me to get the information, is to listen to lectures on YouTube, because I can do that while I'm working, and it's time constraints as far as reading things. And I modified what I'd done in this video. It was different than I would have planned on earlier in the week. I watched the 2 videos that you put up there, and so I based less on what was in the Bible, because I think that you would see that as circular, in that prophecy that's both prophesied and fulfilled in the Bible is not going to satisfy what you're looking for. And so I'm interested in the logic information that you have, the books and so on. And I felt badly about your experience with Christians. It sort of sounds like my experience. Anymore, it seems like if I meet somebody and within the first few minutes they tell me that they're a Christian, and it's kind of out of context, I didn't ask them that, it's almost like they're saying, well, you should trust me, And when people say, you can trust me, or they try to go out of their way to tell me that they're honest, that's usually when I think that they're not honest. It's thou doth protest too much. It's a tell. And I was a little bit worried about something that you said regarding people not responding to your videos. We have freedom of speech in this country so far, and that's a rare occurrence in human history and even in the world today. So if people aren't using that, that's a shame, because there are actually half dozen, there's preachers in jail in Canada right now because of the laws that they've passed in regards to well, I guess it's hate speech. They're in jail because they read portions of the Bible that had to do with homosexuality, and you can say, well, they're Christians, they deserve that. But I think that would be in this country within the next 20 years the same kind of law, and it'd be Christians first, but it's going to be other people after that. It'd be like 1930s Germany. Starts with the Jews, and then there are other people get picked off, and eventually we lose our freedom inch by inch. So I would encourage people that are watching videos and have something to say it rather than not say it, because we have the freedom to say it, and we should exercise that. So it's a little worrisome when I hear that there's very little feedback coming back, because that's not what people die for in foreign countries, to protect, so that we can be apathetic and say nothing. Anyways, that's the end of this.